Hello and welcome back to Business Today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Viewers, today we have a show which is about speaking about a particular person, and his name is our guest, Mr. Nazmul Hoqe. Sorry, Mr. Nazmul Hoqe. And he's a gentleman from Oxford who's done very well for himself. The idea of the show today is not to impress you, but impress upon you about a gentleman who's done really well from one business and then moved on to another business, and how he's done well. So let's go and find out how he did what he did. Okay, so without further ado, I will introduce my guest to you, Mr. Nazmul Hoqe. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much.
Okay, first of all, Mr. Hoqe, could you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yeah, my name is Nazmul Hoqe, as you've said. Born and brought up in Oxford. All my life, educated to well, high school dropout really.
Okay.
My father owned a restaurant, obviously migrated like most of our fathers from Bangladesh, worked hard, opened restaurants, worked even harder, made the business successful. When obviously came to age, I took the restaurant over and obviously got into business from there really.
Okay. Okay, what was your first business that you were involved in?
It was my father's restaurant.
Okay.
Helping out from a young age in the kitchen, washing dishes, on a upside down Coca-Cola crate, as I'm sure most of us in the restaurant industry with families have done.
Okay, yeah, definitely, yeah.
From there onwards, moved into, opened a grocery shop, which is still running. I've got a construction company, building firm. We've just launched a new company to supply mosques and houses with digital timetables and announcements.
Okay. Okay. Question to you is, obviously you've done really well for yourself and you've got a very successful business in Oxford. We all know about it. Okay. Now, from the restaurant, what inspired you to now go on and do different things? Like you've got the construction, you've got the grocery shop, you've got the new project that you've just come on board with. What inspires you to do these different things?
The inspiration, I suppose, for myself personally, two inspirations. One, to find myself a better living, and I'm sure everybody out there is looking for the next best thing. You know, they want to move on. Everybody wants to move on into better and bigger things. My inspiration is that really personally. I want to do something which is less effort, more return. But not always is that the case. Like my grocery shop, that was a completely different story altogether.
Yeah.
That was due to necessity. When I say necessity, not the need of having a grocery shop, but the need to keep my current business, which was the restaurant, profitable and in a good prime business location.
What came first, the grocery or the construction business and all that?
The grocery came first.
Okay, okay. Now, can I ask you about the necessity? What is it exactly that you felt that it was necessary to do the grocery shop?
Well, where my restaurant is, my grocery shop is dead opposite, or should I say where my restaurant was. It was dead opposite, and the property came up for lets. And it had big signboard up there saying A3 permission available, which at that point alarm bells started ringing, thinking, wow, this is a big location. It's got its own car parking, which my restaurant doesn't have.
Okay, so there's more advantages.
It had more advantages. It was a bigger space. It was, it was just so much bigger than what my restaurant was at that point. And my restaurant was big. It was 150 seater. So thinking, wow, this is going to make a dent in my trading.
Okay, you felt a sense of threat.
Yeah, it was a very big sense of threat. Didn't know what to do. When I thought, right, we can't let anybody come into there. So I thought, you know what, stop. Philosophy is, when you have a problem, try to not get into the problem, and instead of getting into the problem and solving it. If you can stop the problem happening, you don't have to solve anything. So it's better to stop than to kind of try to solve it.
Okay.
So that was the philosophy behind it. So if we stop anybody coming and taking this premises as a restaurant, we don't have to worry about trade being lost, or we don't have to worry about business being affected, or right, we're going to lose money in trade or anything like that. So moving forward, we thought, right, let's go and speak to the agents and let's take it on. And at that point, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We spoke to the agents. We said, right, we want to take this premises on, and they said, okay, fair enough. And at that point, I was thinking, right, I'm going to do something myself. And my father had built up a reputation. He built, being well established at that point, he was about 25 years on in business in the same location, and expanded from one shop into 3. So the local business people, the banks, everybody knew my father. And when I went to the agents, I said, right, my family owns the Moonlight restaurant, we want to take this premises on. They said, right, no problem. And at that point, I had the keys. They gave me the keys without actually thinking a second thought. From the office, they gave me the premises keys, and I went and opened it up, had a look, and I kept the keys, and that was it. I never gave the keys back.
Okay, because you were determined to have it.
I was determined to have it. Halfway through, everything was like going through to the paper, solicitors, the paperwork was going through, and I turned around and asked my dad, what are we going to do there? And he said, well, we'll think about that afterwards. And at that point, my uncle used to have a grocery shop further down the road, about half a mile down the road. And there's other 2 grocery shops, and we'd never find everything in one place. And even though we'd never find everything we wanted. And that was very frustrating. And I came back to my dad and I said, like, what about a grocery shop? And he said, yeah, grocery shop. Do it. My father was always encouraging. He was never, no, don't do this, no, don't do that, no. He was never, he never had a negative.
So you thought about it. What can we do? What's there that is potential?
Absolutely.
That I can do there and actually make a good business out of.
Absolutely.
But
the main thing was, if somebody opened a restaurant there, it would have taken half my trade. So I would have lost half my income. So I weighed it out that the rents and the rates and whatever it would cost me to own that property empty was actually far less than having somebody taking a chunk of my business. So the loss either way is there if it was empty premises. The loss was greater if somebody was there as a competitor. The loss is
so you weighed everything out.
You weighed everything
smart
out.
Move, So you thought to yourself, okay, if I had a mortgage on it, that's how much it's going to cost me a month. The business rate, empty business rate, is going to cost me that much more a month. So that dent would be so much smaller than having a competitor there
taking business away.
Yeah, it could be the bulk of the business, it could be a little bit of the business, it could be anything. But you really thought about it. I really salute you for that.
Thank you. And from there on, obviously, the grocery shop, being a completely different industry altogether, I had no experience in running a retail shop or a grocery shop or a butcher's. Restaurant was what I knew. Construction, building, I knew. My brother's a carpenter, cabinet maker. He'll kill me if I say carpenter. He's a cabinet maker by trade, so he actually went through the proper channels and he knows how to do construction. And from him, obviously, I learned and kind of got into it a bit more. But grocery shop was nothing in the books. I'm thinking, right, I've just dived into the deep end. What do I do? So while we had work going on into the shop, to make it into a shop, I went and got a job after restaurant closing times at Tesco's.
Okay.
I actually worked for Tesco's for 3 months to gain the knowledge on how do you actually do shelving, how do you do anything in a shop. I don't know. You can go to the cash and carry like we do for the restaurant and buy cans of Cokes and bottles of milk and breads and biscuits and sweets and chocolates, but how do you sell it?
It's the organising that goes behind it.
Exactly. So I worked 3 months in Tesco's to find out, okay, let's kind of not be in the deep end and have a little bit of understanding and see how things go and how things work. And from there I thought, okay, I know how to fill a shelf basically. I know how to do a pricing. We need to have an EPOS system. It's not the old, like the TV show Open All Hours with the 2 Ronnies where you go tick, tick, tick on the till. Those days have gone. So we needed a computer system. You need technology. And it was a learning curve. And the first year I made a £50,000 loss.
Wow.
Which was a huge loss. If you think about it, it cost me 200,000 to set it up, and I lost 50 grand on top of that the first year.
Yeah, that's 250,000 pound gone straight away.
Gone straight away.
Mm.
So
And how did you cope with that loss?
very hard. But the restaurant obviously was there, which helped us kind of balance things out and push us along. A lot of hard work. A lot of hard work.
So, talking about your father, you know, what sort of support did you felt that you got from your father?
Well, frankly, if it wasn't for my father, I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing, talking about my success. There would be no success. My father, like I said, he migrated from Bangladesh. He worked hard. He worked in the sawmills. He worked in bread factories. He walked in feet of snow to go to work. And then
He worked really hard, yeah.
yeah, worked really hard. And then, you know, he's opened the restaurant. He worked even harder to make that a success, where everybody was against him, because in those days, a restaurant, there wasn't any about. In the 70s, it's like, especially in a remote location like Oxford, where it's predominantly racist white people, not now, but
Okay.
obviously in those days.
In those days, yeah.
You know, racism was a big thing, and you know, everybody, full well, you know, curry sauce and chips in a restaurant was what was popular. He worked hard, extremely hard. You know, he didn't think about himself. All he thought was, I need to make this successful, and he did. That restaurant won. Literally, it was a Chinese restaurant with the ceilings falling down, water leaking everywhere.
Oh, okay.
He took that on and he made it into a 150-seater restaurant. He bought properties either side of it and converted that into one big restaurant.
Okay, so
Expanded extremely, absolutely. It wasn't, like I said, if it wasn't for my father, I wouldn't be here. The support I got, he was never negative. Yeah, obviously parents are negative, don't get me wrong, you know, where they see it's wrong, they say it's wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've made mistakes. My father said, this is a mistake. But he let me make my own mistakes to learn from.
For you, he was your mentor?
He was my mentor, and he still is my mentor. If I come up to a problem now, even if I don't know what to do, I still ask him, what shall I do?
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice to have. I must admit, you know, I was very similar to you until I lost my father. Everything we did in the business, we would just go to him and just ask him, you know.
Even if it was the same answer, it was just, you have a relief.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's a different
nice
feeling.
speaking to you, and we went on to the emotional side there,
Yeah.
but however, it is important.
It is,
full
absolutely.
of emotions and happiness. But we're going to a break, so we'll just come back after the break. Viewers, stay tuned, please, and we'll see you after the break.